Yes, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Right, item 10, site north of 11 to 17 Madeira Road, Mitcham. Officer Lewis, could you please present the scheme? Thank you.
Okay, if I can just confirm that members can see the photographs of the site. This application concerns a plot of vacant land within or between the Canons house listed building and Park Place, another listed building. I'll just take you around the site. This is looking into the site as you come in off Madeira Road towards the Canons Leisure Centre car park. We've got, sorry. Again, looking to, that's the wall, which is part of the, that's the listed wall that's referred to. We've got a two-storey dwelling just in the distance there, which wraps around the site. Sorry. That's looking west towards the Canons out of the site. That's stepping into the site from the last photograph and looking north towards the playing fields. You see some a rather nice tree within the centre of the site. Again, tree within the site. Quite a tree boundary. That's looking south towards the properties nearby on Madeira Road. And then looking in the direction towards Park Place. And then views of the site beyond. And again, the car park adjacent to the site. And that's looking into the site from the service road, which is on the south side of the sports and recreation fields beyond the Canons. And that's a slightly more up-to-date photograph, and you'll see a number of contractors, bits of machinery and equipment in there. The site's temporarily being used as a compound whilst works commence on the refurbishment of the Canons house, which is one of the Heritage Lottery funded schemes which the council is dealing with. If I can just confirm, importantly, that this site has been identified in what's currently the draft, the stage 2 draft revised local plan as an opportunity site with a preferred use for housing. So different from the other two in as much as, different in relation to the one relating to the car park, where it's actually in the local plan. This one is identified for housing in the draft local plan. So a document that has some weight in the decision-making process, but not the same weight as that of an adopted local plan. I've shown you the trees. I've shown you that the site's currently being used as a yard for carrying out refurbishment on Canons house. The photographs which I showed you described part or showed part of a wall around the site. the proposals wouldn't impact on the wall. The proposals are for a mix of privately rented flats along with 7 market houses for sale. In this particular instance, the mix is close to the indicative mix in the council's 2014 local plan. And the image that you can see in front of you, this L-shaped block here comprises the flats, and this irregular block along the east side of the site comprises the town houses. You'll see from the officer's report that there's quite a detailed design assessment for this scheme, starting at paragraph 7.3. As a matter of judgment, officers take the view that the proposals would preserve the character and setting of the heritage assets, namely the 2 nearby listed buildings. You'll also see from the report that although scoring an amber, the notes in the officer's report do flag up the fact that the scheme almost secured a green. If I can just show you a couple of images, that's a computer-generated image showing the proposed townhouses as seen within the courtyard of the development. And the other image that I'm going to show you, so that's looking at the building from the car park adjacent to Park Place. So that's a view of
sorry, Jonathan. Sorry, I don't know if it's me. I can't see any photos. I don't know if it's just me, but I couldn't see any of the photos. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
If anyone else could, please correct me. It just didn't show up on my screen.
I can't see them either. I'm just seeing the plans.
Sorry, Councillor Christie. Hello.
Jonathan, we can't see anything. Would you like to try and share your screen again?
No, sorry. The I'm conscious that I can see the image of
We've actually lost you as well.
Yeah, sorry, I can hear people, but right, okay, I'm just going to press return to meeting. Sorry, I think I'm going to have to come out of the meeting and come back in.
Okay. Actually, you're back.
I'm back. That's good. Sorry. Yes, if I can just sort of go through the details of the scheme in a little more detail. The houses and all bar two of the flats are dual aspect. You'll see from the report that the standard of accommodation is up to national standards internally. You'll see that in the report there's some commentary about external amenity space, but officers consider in this instance the proposals are of sufficient standard to warrant the application of that flexibility, and in terms of external space have factored in the location of the site within areas of publicly accessible open space. So if there's a scheme where there's scope to reasonably compromise on those standards, officers consider that this is such a scheme. Parking provisions are considered acceptable. Again, as this is going to deliver a major development, climate change officers have been scrutinising the sustainability credentials of the scheme. It's understood that further work may be required on this, and this will temper the way in which we factor in or secure any carbon offset contributions in this instance. Servicing arrangements have been properly analysed and are considered to be acceptable. And again, the scheme is recommended for approval subject to the completion of a suitable legal mechanism to ensure the delivery of the affordable housing and other planning benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Christie, did you still want to see the photos, or can we go on to?
I mean, it's fine. It was just they were describing photos that I couldn't see, and I didn't know if that was a problem for everyone, or. But I don't mind.
No, thank you for that. Right, I have one speaker, Tony Burton. Are you here?
Hi there.
Yeah. Tony, thank you very much. You have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. I'm Tony Burton. I'm Secretary of Mitcham Cricket Green Community and Heritage, the civic society for this part of Mitcham. We welcome the establishment of Merton as a development vehicle for Merton Council and support the need for more homes that meet local needs and improve Mitcham. Unfortunately, this development does neither. For a first foray into house building, you could hardly pick a more sensitive location, set between two nationally listed mansion houses on an historic nursery site bounded by listed walls and occupied by Merton's Tree of the Year. Its development will break the link with the Canons and further fragment its historic grounds. None of this is addressed by the pitifully weak heritage assessment provided by Merton. This even fails to assess the impact on the key view from the Canons' house. If the site has to be developed, which it doesn't, then it demands the highest standards of design. This scheme falls woefully short. It is poorly conceived, overdeveloped, monotonous and visually intrusive. Your own design review panel has described it as, quote, too harsh and clunky, and, quote, too busy, intense and slightly military in feel. We have already shared with you one strikingly poor example of a 3-storey blank wall elevation. This example alone makes your decision this evening an easier one. Your decision is also helped by the accepted fact that the planned townhouses provide only half of the outdoor amenity space necessary to be policy compliant. The nursery site also has important natural interest. The ecological study recognises it has, quote, significant ecological value, and it is also home to the striking, wonderful pagoda tree, Merton's current Tree of the Year. At first we were told this would remain untouched. We didn't believe it. Now we're told its canopy will be reduced by at least 50%, well in excess of the British standard for such tree work. If it is lucky enough to survive, then it will be pruned to stay in this diminished state for the rest of its long life. The lack of care in the proposals is also evident in crass plans to light the trees. This is a landscape where light pollution has been carefully managed for years to protect feeding grounds for bats. There were also major clashes with the £5 million lottery project that should have brought a very different future for the nursery site. To be closing off a part of the Canons landscape as a route for the general public for the first time in nearly 100 years, when so much is being done to open it up elsewhere, is unconscionable. You can be confident in rejecting the application. You don't have the information required to judge its heritage impact. There are clear conflicts with national planning policy, the London plan and Merton's local plan, and there is demonstrable harm to the conservation area. We know that Merton Council turning down a planning application from Merton Council can't be easy. We also know that you will approach the decision with an independent mind. The plans are nowhere near being good enough for this site. We ask you to reject them.
Thank you, Tony. So on to the agents, Philip Dunphy and Louise Scannell. Who would like to speak? Is it you, Louise, or Philip? Philip, you have 3 minutes.
If it's okay, Chair, I might just speak briefly at the start and then hand over to my colleague Louise just to specifically respond on the design-related comments from the objector.
That's fine, you have 3 minutes between two of you.
Okay, great, thank you. Just very quickly on the subject of the existing site being a contributor to the setting of the listed buildings, we fully acknowledge this is a sensitive site and a challenging site. We took that on with gusto in terms of coming forward with a scheme that was sensitive in its scale and in its architecture. I'll let Louise expand on that a little shortly. At the moment, the site is massively underused. It's completely inaccessible. This is a very unique opportunity, with it being a council-led site, to bring forward something that no private developer would be able to deliver. Therefore, it represents a very important opportunity, and one that has been acknowledged to respond to the architecture of the listed buildings and the setting of the listed buildings in a sensitive manner. Just coming back on the comment in relation to the lottery fund scheme adjacent, there has been no objection from the Heritage Lottery Fund to this scheme. We believe that both can coexist very positively and make sure that they both come forward in a very complementary way. I would also just respond in relation to the tree. There is a tree on the site that was listed as Tree of the Year last year, but we are making it the centerpiece of the development. We will greatly increase its accessibility for the local people to come in and see that tree. It will be very much appreciated and carefully, yes, pruned to an extent, but carefully dealt with and managed in perpetuity. So I'll just quickly hand over to Louise.
Thanks, Phil. So yeah, just picking up on some of the design comments that were made there. I think the officer's report kind of explains the architectural approach very well, but we have taken great care to design the scheme very sensitively to the obviously very unique heritage context. So that's both in relation to the overall massing, so making sure that the building heights and massing doesn't negatively impact on the surrounding area. And we've drawn significant inspiration from the Georgian architecture of the two listed buildings. So that's both in the architectural detailing, the design of the perimeter walls, and also the brick selection. I believe the officer's report also has the kind of full feedback from the DRP, which is more extensive than the quote that was given in the commentary just now. And then just picking up one of the specific points that was made about a blank gable wall that has been kind of circulated. That is a gable wall at the end of the apartment block. It's not a kind of primary elevation. And it's blank because if there were windows there, there'd be significant overlooking issues to the adjacent townhouses. So it's a blank gable wall, but we've added interest through kind of recessed brick panels, which is actually, again, quite a common feature on Georgian architecture, and indeed on Canons House, it exists.
3 minutes.
Yeah, so yeah, just that's a quick summary on those design details.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Louise, and thank you, Philip. Officer Lewis, Jonathan, would you like to respond and make any comments?
Yes, I think if I can direct members to the observations made by the design review panel in the officer's report, you'll see that it's perhaps not quite as clear cut as it might first seem. The members of the panel did make some observations regarding the scheme, which might be interpreted as being somewhat negative. But on the whole, like I said, the concluding comment from the design review panel While internally the house layouts were light, the entrance area is considered impractical. Okay, so those points have been worked on, and then you get a comment. One of the panel members expressed the view, "I'd love to live there." So and they're saying the panel as a whole felt the issue of feel and appearance of the Muse houses just prevented them from giving it a green verdict. So I think just to sort of create a bit of balance here, yes, you might expect a panel of architects to be critical of certain aspects of a scheme, but I think on the whole, this is a fairly positive response on quite a tricky site. And I think the officers' report, when looking at views to and from the open space, views towards and between the listed buildings, does seek to tackle this issue of how these proposals would intervene between the two listed buildings. And what we've looked at is, historically, was this something in the form of, say, an important avenue or corridor between the listed buildings? Well, no, it doesn't seem to have been the case. Have there been buildings on the site in the past? Well, yes, but they haven't been sort of great architectural gems. They've been perhaps nursery buildings. So in principle, there have been buildings there in the past. In terms of the architectural heritage and historic heritage of the site, it's not as if this site, by building on it, actually removes some historic feature, like an ancient sort of avenue of trees leading to a building. So really we get down to matters of the bulk and massing of the period of the building, and then weighing that against the very important considerations of delivering housing. So if members can sort of take it one step at a time and think of the heritage considerations first, are members comfortable with that, and then move on to other matters, then I think that would be a good starting point, because at the end of the day, the key with something like this is, do the proposals preserve the character and setting of the statutory listed buildings? And officers would say that as a starting point, yes, they do.
Thank you, Jonathan. So I'd like to open up the questions to members, please. Do we have any questions? Councillor Dean.
So this tree, is it always going to have to be cut back further than it is today because of this development?
Chair, the tree would need to be properly maintained in the future, so as not to impact on the neighbouring properties.
So are you saying that it will be maintained differently from today? Is it properly maintained today?
Chair, I wonder if I could share the photographs again. Well, I'll endeavour to share the photographs. So
can I just make sure everyone can see the photos?
Just go back into the. Can Councillor Christie see the?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, you can see examples there of pollarding of trees. Now, when pollarding takes place, it might cause alarm amongst those people sort of enjoying a walk or playing in at the recreation ground. But even though it appears rather severe, pollarding like this is, a recognised feature of arboricultural management. So if we go back into the site again, I would respectfully suggest that the way in which the site has been maintained, perhaps isn't at an optimum. I hear what Tony Burton says regarding the extent to which trees may be pruned on the site. But then again, I would, if I can, call up the images of the development. Okay, the tree will need to be pruned back, and it will need to be pruned regularly. But I would concur with Philip Dunphy's comment that the scheme has been designed so as to make a genuine feature of something like this tree within the development. Thank you.
Councillor Makin and then Councillor Southgate. So Councillor Makin, please.
I've got a few questions. One, it's a PTEL2 again, which implies that people will want to drive cars rather than travel on public transport. How do you propose to stop the residents parking in Park Place to get into the site? What does the boundary of the site look like on the Park Place side anyway? And how often do you propose to plant the tree? To start.
Thank you. That's probably a transport planning question. And I don't know if we have the transport officer with us. Hello? Maybe Jonathan, you can start.
Yes, Chair, if I can draw members' attention to page 259 of the committee agenda, and this is about access, and you can see there that there are arrangements at the moment in terms of getting access to the site to utilise the access road, but it's conceivable that in terms of Park Place, there may be a management regime that would prevent residents from parking in the restaurant and pubs car park. Whether or not there may be similar restrictions in place in terms of the use of the Canons leisure centre car park, I'm afraid I'm not aware of that. But again, if we look at the numbers of parking spaces that are being provided and work on the basis of seeking to try and restrict the reliance on cars, the advice we've had from the transport officer is that the approach that's being taken is acceptable. And were the applicant to engage in discussions with the council's leisure services in terms of any arrangements for the neighbouring car park, well, again, that's something that would be dealt with sort of quite outside of the scope of this planning application, because it's all land owned by the council. If the council wished to grant any concessions in that respect, it could do so outside of the context of the planning application. But nevertheless, even though the PTAL score is rather low, the location within which the site is to be found is such that, you know, I can't really sort of think how any car parking that would spill over into surrounding streets would actually affect people. You'd have to walk, you know, you'd have to walk some distance from any surrounding streets to get back to your property.
Thank you.
Was there another question?
Was that Councillor Merton? Was that most?
Oh.
Was it the question?
How often do the polling?
There are conditions on landscaping as part of the planning approval, and if members wished those conditions to be made more robust, then certainly within a landscaping scheme, we could require further details regarding the pruning and maintenance of the tree. That would be quite reasonable. So if adjustment to a condition is required, that could be incorporated into any decision.
And the other question was about the boundary of the site on the Park Place side.
I wonder if Katerina may wish to comment on the boundary treatment on the Park Place side.
Yep. So on the back of the Muse houses, that's going to form the new boundary between the site and the car park. So I don't know if Jonathan can bring up the plans, or I can bring up the plans on my screen, where there is the curved brick wall for the courtyards of the townhouses. That would form the new boundary, and then there will be low-level planting as well in front of that to stop people stepping over from it from the car park.
Right, thank you.
If I can just scroll up to the drawings. I'm sorry, there's a bit of a delay between me moving the cursor and the images coming up on the screen. Sorry. Sorry, Chair. I can just get to yeah, so what we're looking at is the introduction of, I suppose you could call it sort of a scalloped wall along this side of the site. So partly wall, partly railings, with quite a nice curved detail to it. I'll see if there's an elevation that.
Further along, there's a proposed rear elevation near the bottom of the pack.
Thank you.
I think it was on page 16.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I will find that drawing, but I'm afraid at the moment the images that I've got have come up as scrambled on the screen. If I can come back to Councillor Makin's question shortly, I'll try and get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, it's basically a 2 metre plus wall with slightly lower sections to prevent direct overlooking, with a scalloped line to the rear of each of the individual units to give some sense of rhythm to it.
And the police were happy with that, weren't they?
Sorry, Councillor Macon.
The police were happy with that. It said in the report.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Southgate, did I see your hand?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just for my own clarity, really, the photo we've been looking at of a large tree standing alone, is that the pagoda tree? I mean, I wouldn't otherwise know, it from the pagoda at Kew. So, and looking at around the site, yes, access is quite restricted. So just my other point really is the very severely limited amenity space for the 6 townhouses, and this may have been touched on already. Now, I'm really looking for some reassurance or justification for that it's half what we would normally expect as the minimum for a house. Thank you.
Chair, if you look at the officers' report, officers haven't shied away from acknowledging the fact that for the townhouses, there clearly is a shortfall in terms of garden space. However, if there was to be a site where you might reasonably relax amenity space standards, then I would suggest it should be one adjacent to or very close to publicly accessible open space, such as is the case around the Canons and the various pitches and play areas and playgrounds that the public can enjoy. There are various constraints around this site, and what the applicant has sought to do is, rather than rolling out a development with a very conventional format, there really is a sense of trying to genuinely design something unique to this site. If you look at the way in which the site has been laid out, you could envisage perhaps a square being developed within a set of buildings. At the moment we've got the 2-story building that's retained on part of the site, but you could envisage in the future perhaps that corner of the square being finished off. And if you're going to genuinely try and create a sense of a courtyard development, then you're naturally going to push the buildings towards the edge of the site. So something somewhere's got to give. And I think with a lot of these things, if it's a case with planning of just simply working through tick boxes and saying, does it meet this? Tick, that's okay. Does it meet this? Cross, well, we better refuse it. As planners, we've got to try and look at the scheme in the round. And I think looked at in the round, there are definitely some positives. But I do understand your concern.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Latif, sorry, if I can, without going back to the drawings, if I can direct Councillor Makin to page 283 of the agenda papers, there is a drawing. The top image there does show the wall which would face onto the Park Place car park.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
Sorry, the reason I'm asking you is because these are very small and I find it very difficult to look at these in some ways, and they're big on the screen. That's why I'm asking you for it, but that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions. I'll move on to comments. Any comments by, yes, Councillor Dean.
I think the conversation is in the wrong place here. This is Mitcham Cricket Green has more listed buildings than the whole of Wimbledon, and the very oldest building in the whole borough, and one of the oldest in the country, is literally yards away from this development, the Dovecot. And the fact that the council worked hard to get 5 million quid from the lottery to redevelop the history of this whole site is a wonderful thing. And in the same time, to destroy the facade, to destroy the vista, it is highly damaging. The only real people that can stop developers putting up brutal, terrible buildings in the wrong place is the council itself. Yet this is council land, this is council finance, this is a council application to the council, and it is ignoring every single thing it talks about when it goes out to its community forums, when it stands in full council, when it sits in sustainable community panels. Every single thing that this council claims, it's ignoring totally. And to talk about maintaining a tree when essentially it is destroying a tree which has just been talked about by the very council as being beautiful and historic and important. Those two listed buildings are absolutely wonderful. And to put this style in this area is just totally wrong. And for the officers to talk about nearly a green, it's not got a green. The points were made by people at that DRP. And it is not just about building a large number of units for housing. There are lots of different places that could happen. This is a very small number. How on earth anyone could say these are Georgian? It is just taking, I can't use the words. And I think, Chair, that the council has to go back and re-examine every single thing about this development and have some respect for the people of Mitcham, have some respect for its own values, and reject this tonight and think about that it isn't just about today. This is about the past and about the future. Because I can tell you in 20 years, people say, what a disgraceful development. Who are the people that backed that? Because they don't think one jot about the people of Mitcham, and they should.
Thank you. Councillor Lanning, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I think what Councillor Dean has mentioned is that what this application does is tear away from what the council stands for and what the council's values are. And I think that part of what the council stands for is delivering family homes, and it's delivering affordable housing. And that's what this scheme does deliver. We've got a really positive housing mix, 7 4-bed properties, actual proper family homes, and the package of Merton developments will enable 21 socially rented houses to be rented by people in genuine need. So I think that personally is what the council stands for. And I do appreciate the concerns raised around how the application relates to heritage assets and also to the design. I personally think that actually the design is sympathetic and sensitive to heritage assets, and actually design also is very subjective. The applicant has done what it can to ensure that the pagoda tree is highlighted, and it's sort of the central part of this application. And also the DRP does say it commends the application and is very close to agreeing. So I think overall it definitely contributes to the quality of the overall area.
Thank you, Councillor Lanning. Councillor Christie, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I have to say, for the second time tonight, Councillor Lanning has made all my points for me, but I was glad to hear that she spoke first as one of the ward councillors for the relevant ward. So I would just re-emphasise that I think some of what Councillor Dean has said is just frankly gross over-exaggeration. To talk of this this proposal destroying a vista is kind of irresponsible language, considering that this is a relatively underused and unmaintained part of the wider Canons area. I think the proposal is sensitive to the area. As Councillor Lanning says, it does contribute to delivering a good mix of new housing in the borough, which is frankly central to the council's aims and values. And so I think it's a really positive application as part of the wider 4 Merton applications, and so I will be supporting it tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Although I will support this application, but to be honest with you, I live in Mitcham for 30 years. I really love Mitcham, and I think definitely we are taking away some of the values of Mitcham. I know we desperately need houses, and I know we desperately have quite a lot of people who are homeless, and we really, really want to support them in finding accommodation. However, I think we are, overpressuring ourselves to find accommodation by using up very small spaces. However, due to the fact that the council have a duty to support people who are in needs, I will go along with this application, but it's not something in my heart that I think I really, really want to do, because as I say, I mean, especially where the Canons is, and that's an heritage, that's a value that really that's Mitcham value. A matter of fact, if you look the Canons, that should restore for our young people to grow up and see what Mitcham used to be like. I'm really shocked to see the state of how it is kept at the moment, especially that area that has been shown just a while ago. And I hope, what we're doing, we will not regret it. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Right, conscious of time. So, Councillor Dean, do you want to make a recommendation, or are you happy for me to go on to the vote?
Well, I'll be interested in other people's views, because I sense that this is a political reason this is being put through, because this is a council property, council land, council finance, and council. And I want to hear everybody else's views on this.
Okay, Councillor Ward.
Yes, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve this application and move to the vote. Thank you.
Seconded.
Councillor Dehaney, did you want to say anything, or can I move on to the vote? Could you unmute yourself, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you? Right, I'm going to vote for the application, but that is not because I entirely agree with it. We put forward this affordable houses argument all the time to destroy beautiful areas. And I think that area in Canons, which I go there regularly to the gym, should not have been touched at all. The houses should not have been going to be built there. But I will support the application because we argue too much about affordable. So, okay, it was affordable houses, I'll vote for it, but it's not because I agree with it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Denny. Councillor Dean, it's your chance. Do you want to make a recommendation or shall I just go straight to the vote?
No, I'm just disgusted by the fact that this is going ahead and it should not go ahead. And I'll make my points again and again.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to do a roll call. So can we do a roll call, Louise, on those in favour of the recommendation? Louise?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Christie.
4.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Dehaney.
4.
Councillor Henry.
4.
Councillor Lanning.
4.
Councillor Makin.
4.
Councillor McGrath.
4.
Councillor Southgate.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Not voting.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
4.
And Councillor Latif.
Not voting. So.
Thank you. That's 7 for, 1 against, and 2 not voting.
Okay, so that's granted. Thank you. Right, on to the final application, number 11, item number 11 on the agenda, car park Raleigh Gardens.